This looks like a one-way. Yeah, I'm gonna have to back out of here. What is going on, everybody? Oop. Clean you up there. Welcome back to Key West Waterman. My name is Aaron Young. It is another beautiful day here in Key West, Florida. I'm doing a little bit of exploring. We're heading home in a couple days. My brother and sister-in-law are supposed to be having their baby any day now, bringing another Young into the Young clan. So we're headed home in a few days, and I'd like to bring some fresh fish with me if possible. So I'm out here just kind of goofing off. Wind is really light today. It's obviously light where I am. I'm up in the mangroves, but yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of exploring, do some shallow diving in the mangroves, snorkeling, whatever you want to call it. I've got the spear guns and dive gear, and hopefully we can find some fish to bring back to them. But I'm gonna have to get out of here. This is a little tight. I didn't realize this was a one-way. Water looks kind of dirty in here anyways. I can see the bottom. It's just kind of got a brown tint to it. So I'm probably gonna move along, maybe check out some other spots. Well, I was gonna check out a couple islands, but it is really, really low tide. I'm in like a foot of water, maybe. A foot and a quarter, but tide is crazy low. So I'm either gonna have to run to the other side of the island, like the Keys Island, not this island, the Atlantic side, or I'm gonna have to find something with a channel near it, or just like a trench, something a little deeper. It's just too low. When the tide drops like this, most of the fish will leave and go out a little deeper because the water gets too hot and they're a little too vulnerable. But we shall move forward. So I've always wanted to dive this spot, but it's like almost impossible to get to unless you have like a paddleboard or a kayak. But I figured I'd just try to pole it in today. There's too much grass and stuff. It gets really, really shallow. We finally got out of it. This is where it gets a little deeper, but I just poled over that to get in here. But it does drop down a bit. And there's a couple little small channels, so we're gonna tuck up in here. Check it out. So I can already see a ton of little mangroves. I don't want to go too far in there because I don't want to spook too much, so I'm going to get set up. Maybe I'll anchor up in this corner. Look at all them, a lot of baby ones, but I'm sure there's some keepers in there. This is really cool. I've never been in here. The water's a little brown today because it's such a low tide. All of the water comes out of the mangrove roots and the foundation they're in, so to speak, and it kind of gives it that brown tint, but that's all right. I can see just fine. So I was going to take the Grover, the little shorty, but I'm going to take the 90 instead. The water, like I said, has a brown tint, but it's still pretty clear. Welcome back underwater, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to come along. As always, I will talk about some of these dives and scenarios. Some of the clips, I'll just let them roll, let you explore with me. Had a really spectacular afternoon. Got some great fish, found a new freshwater spring that I've never seen. It was so cool, such a treat. Something else I'm going to start doing is I'll try to keep up with it. I'm going to add chapters to the videos. I did it in the last one. It was a really long one, but a lot of you guys seem to like it, so I will start to add chapters. You can see a Goliath grouper there laying on the bottom. These little plumes of dust are Goliath grouper spooking. This spot's so secluded, I'm sure these fish have never seen a human before. They were very curious as to what I was doing, or what I was. So obviously you can see there are tons of mangrove snapper here. A lot of them were small. There were honestly a few keepers in there, but you know I'm kind of picky. I normally try to wait till they're 14 inches or so. There's another little Goliath grouper. Where I was, I believe the limit was only 10 inches, but like I said, I like to wait till they get a little bigger, a little more meat on them. Just a side note, if you are ever diving a channel or the mangrove tunnels like this, try to start down current and work your way up current. If you start up current and work with the current and you stir up mud, there's fish stirring up like this, or you're on the bottom, you shoot a fish, the current is going to take all of that stirred up water and throw it downstream, so to speak, in front of you. So anytime I do this, I try to get on the down current side and work into the current. Not only that, when I get to the end, I just ride the current back to my boat. Another side note, this Thursday, September 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to get on here and do actually my first live Q&A here on YouTube if that interests you. I'm not sure how many people will actually hop on, so if you have any questions, you can pre-submit them on this video. Just leave it in the comments. I'll try to get to what I can. And I'll take some live questions as well. But figured I'd do it a little later. Thursday, September 26th, 8 p.m. So some of you West Coasters can get on there. If that interests you, I will see you then. Another little Goliath grouper shot down in the hole. Really cool like potholes in this bottom. I was kind of anticipating to see some lobster, but I turn around, there's a big old wall of tarpon. Well, little tarpon, big wall of little tarpon. If you're not familiar, these are sport fish, as they say, catch and release only. We cannot harvest them. Always neat to see though. That was a really neat little swim. Tons of life, saw tons of Goliath grouper. Probably 4,000 mangroves, but a lot of small ones. There was probably a few keepers in there, but I like to hold out for the little bit bigger ones if I can. But that was really neat. I think maybe it's just too low a tide. Water's a little too warm. I think high tide, cooler water, you'd probably have some big ones in here. Great structure, tons of life. But I'm gonna mosey out of here. Try a different spot, hopefully some deeper water and maybe a little cooler water. So I was just cruising along the edge of the flat here, along the island. It's real shallow, just driving around looking. And I ran across this. It's like a little kind of cove almost. And when I drove up over here on this edge, there was a bunch of bait. And I saw some big snapper take off into there, so I'll hop in real quick and check it out. Oh, really cold. So I was a little confused when I hopped in because the surface layer was still warm, but as my body got down near the bottom and my feet and my legs, I could feel the water was actually cold towards the bottom. There was these little cold pockets of water. And being middle of the summer down here, it's just not something you're used to feeling. And I have found other springs down here that pump out cold water, and for whatever reason, I didn't really consider it to be an option just because of the way this little pocket was not designed, but the way that it looked. It looked like a stagnant little corner. It was all everything was brown. I didn't feel any flow, so I didn't think much of it. Just thought maybe it was because it had some shaded areas. There was some pockets of cool water. So I started poking around, see if I could locate any of those bigger mangroves I saw swimming around, and you'll see there's a ton of bait here. These first ones I actually call hardheads. I don't know what they are. And then after them, you see little bigger baits show up. These are actually pilchards. These are one of our favorite baits down here. And typically, if there's a ball of pilchards around, there's going to be something around feeding for the most part. So these two mangroves come across and surprised me a bit, but I was ready, and I thought I had a better shot than I did, and I hip fire, and it looked like I hit the fish, and it maybe just twitched to the left right as I pulled the trigger. And I assumed I was going to see it there flopping, but I didn't. I thought I had a good shot, thought I lined up well, and it just seemed that it missed its mark. I wasn't sure whether I hit it at all. It happens so fast, it really is hard to tell sometimes. So in my heart, honestly, I thought I hit that fish. Obviously, I didn't land it. So I was a little confused, but I felt like the shot was good. And the beauty of having the camera on is I go back and watch this, but you'll see I'm going to slow this down. The second I pull the trigger, it turns, and it looked like it hit it, but at this point in time, I couldn't tell. And I turned my camera off just briefly when I was reloading, and the fish actually came out from behind this log, and it had a big white stripe across its face. And I was like, it was a little foggy, and I couldn't tell if it was the fish, but I had a feeling it was. So I decided to go in here and start looking, and I know my camera's coming in and out of the water, but I shined my light up under this log, and I could see that big snapper sitting there, and it had a big white stripe across his face where the shaft hit it. So I line up with my gun and my light and take a shot. And it's not often you tear out of a fish and are able to locate it again. This was just luck, I guess. That fish felt that it was hiding pretty good under that log. But I was pretty thrilled to get another chance at it and land it. So you'll see that shot probably would have been a stone shot if that fish had not turned, and he turned just at the right time.
Got lucky.
And it skinned right across the side of its head. So after checking out the area closer to the flat side where it opened up, where all that bait was, I didn't see any more snapper worth shooting. I decided to go further back in towards the island, and I realized that the closer I got to the island, the colder the water got. So then my wheels started turning a little bit. I was thinking there's got to be something back here, obviously, that's pumping cold water out. That makes no sense. And it had an eerie feel to it. Everything's kind of brown and dark and a little ominous feeling. You see there's a lot of particles in the water the closer I got to the back. And you'll see if you look, there's little vegetation hanging, and it's actually moving. Right there on the kind of the middle right screen, those are actually moving a little bit, so there's water flowing out of this hole. And I was a little confused, but a little excited. So you can see right there that little bit of vegetation on that point is moving just a little bit. It wasn't a raging current, but just enough current. And curiosity got the best of me, and I decided I was going to go check this out. So as I get down here, the water's ice cold now. I can tell that there is some flow. And I didn't want to go too far back. I am by myself. I know this is a little irresponsible, but curiosity just gets the best of me. And like I said, didn't want to go too far. Just kind of wanted to see if there was anything in there and really see what was going on. Ooh, that's kind of creepy. Oh, it's cold. Woo. So I poked around for a sec trying to relocate some snapper, and I was having some thoughts internally, and I decided curiosity got the best of me. I had to go get another look. I'd love to come back with a tank or someone to spot me, you know, in a tag line or something, and just go a little deeper and see what's back here. It's just wild. And I'd love to hear if anyone else has found these. This is the second one I've visually seen. I found another area where cold water pumps out, but I can't find the source. And it is just ice cold. There's no back to it. I went about 15-20 feet in and I could not see the back. It just kept going. So cool though. Okay, that's dumb. That was so cool. I stumbled upon this. I was driving along the edge of this island and I saw this little kind of a trench where it just got deeper than everything else. And I jumped in. The surface water was warm like the first spot, like really hot, especially if you go out on the flats. But you went down to the bottom, there were little pockets of cold water, and the closer I got to back there, the colder it got. And I mean, you saw, I know I shouldn't have swam that far back in there by myself, but I just get excited. That was just so neat. It's got to be a spring. There's no other reason that water would be pumping out of there ice cold. And I swam, I don't know, 15-20 feet back, and I couldn't even see the back of that cave. I've got to come back with somebody to spot me. I'd love to show Madeleine this. This is just too neat. Little hidden freshwater spring tucked in a mangrove island. Key West, Florida. How cool. I will definitely be back. But I'm getting distracted. The mission is to get fish. I got one nice mangrove there. But I'm going to move along. See if we can find some more. I just spooked a bunch of them, but there's tarpon all through this one. There's a bunch more tarpon right there. Hopefully you can see them with that polarizer. I was going to check this spot, but the water is 95 degrees in here. It looks like the tide flipped around and is starting to come back in. The reason it's so hot is because it is dead low tide, middle of the day. The sun's been baking it. When that open ocean water floods back in, it cools it way off. So I'm going to push out a little bit, try and find a little bit cooler water. Oh, some bad mangroves there. But yeah, I'm going to push out, try and find a little cooler, cleaner water. Water's quite a bit cleaner and a few degrees cooler. We'll give this one a look. You see the tide rolling in. Bring that clean water in. So this is a spot I've dove in the past. It's just been a while. The current rips through here and it eats away at these little mangrove walls. And for being in the mangroves, it actually has some really nice bottom, and it'll sometimes hold some really nice fish. Some days I come here and it's a barren wasteland, but I feel like when the tide's rolling and coming in, I feel like there are quite a few fish here. So just doing a bit of waiting and scanning and grunting. And my patience pays off. A real nice snapper comes right at me, gives me that broadside, and I was ready for it. And as I always say, action brings action. Right after I shot that fish, I reloaded and I looked down, and there's a much bigger snapper down there looking at the dust cloud. I'm trying to track it, and it turns right back into me, and I'm able to get back in and hip fire, get the gun back into me and hip fire. And you got to be careful with that. That's a good way to damage your track. The shaft didn't completely leave the gun, but luckily no damage. But a really, really nice snapper. This one was, I think, almost 20 inches. So I'm gutting my fish, minding my business, and this is just another reminder that you really got to be on the lookout and be careful. And little shark comes in. Not super worried about a shark that size, but it could be a problem. Could have been a bigger shark. May have not hesitated. You just never know. You always have to be alert and watch your back. And it realized I had food, so it continued to follow me. I decided to swim back to the boat and drop these fish off. Didn't want to create a problem.
Wow, very. Holy crap, look at the size of that thing.
So I went back to that same area where I had just shot those two snapper, dropped those two fish off, and I'm going to zoom this in. You'll see a really nice Cubera snapper here. Kind of flicks right into that cave. I wasn't ready. I probably wouldn't shoot one that size, but it is really neat to see those in the mangroves. That's a fish that you would normally see on the reef in 40, 50 feet. But it's neat that they do hang around in here. And this day I actually saw quite a few Cubera. Anywhere from probably 12 to that one was probably 26 inches maybe a little bigger. It's hard to tell, kind of a quick glance at it. You can just see the amount of life. I really, really enjoy diving around these mangroves. So on this drop, just briefly, it's really hard to see and it's kind of foggy. There was another nice Cubera snapper. This one was a little smaller, maybe 18 inches. And I at first thought it was a mangrove, and I lined up as it was on its way out. I didn't really have the shot I wanted, but I realized it was a Cubera. There's another Goliath in there. There was all kinds of snapper in this ledge. Just had a tough time getting lined up on them. There's fish swimming around that I don't want and getting in the way. You can see that Goliath sitting there. Real nice mangrove there. Just in and out real fast. This hunting is very challenging. I know it's shallow, but it really does test your skills. These fish are very jumpy. And yeah, it'll definitely test your reaction time, that's for sure. So here's another one. I didn't really lead with my gun. I kind of did. I just wasn't ready to shoot. And you'll see right here, little Cubera snapper, probably 16 inches or so, 14, 16 inches, and it just darted quicker than I could get my gun up and ready. So here's another missed opportunity on a real nice snapper. Just wasn't ready. It comes in right here on its way out. I just couldn't get lined up. I was too tight in those branches. Not only are the fish jumpy, the tight quarters do not make it any easier. There's another snook hanging out. Always cool to see those. And this was pretty neat. I think, I could be wrong, I think this is a spider crab. I don't know that I've ever seen one white like that though. If you know what that is, tell me. I'm pretty sure it's a spider crab. What we call spider crab are actually channel clinging crab, I think is the proper name. But I believe that was a spider crab. Anyways, different area. Come around the corner, there's a ton of bait, and there were some nice mangroves hanging out. I got one more shot on a decent one. It seemed like everywhere there was pilchards on the corner, there'd be a ball of mangroves hanging out near them. And here is another missed opportunity. If I'd have shot every good fish I saw this day, I'd had a boatload of fish. So there's a down there grunting, shaking my gun, trying to create some commotion, and this really nice snapper comes in, but they were being so jumpy right here. I tried to lean my gun slowly, and it came into that branch. I wasn't able to get the look I wanted on it. If it would have went to the right, I'd have been in a better position. So he actually comes back in, and I thought I had a good shot, and the second I pulled the trigger, he turned. And I just flat out missed it. So I actually went out the next morning to grab a few more fish. I've got a pretty big family, so I wanted to make sure I had enough fish. And I didn't get a ton of footage, but I did want to show you something. I actually found a slipper lobster, which a few of you have asked about. Or a shovel-nose bulldozer lobster. I think everyone calls them something different. But in this hole, there was a decent red grouper. It looked too close. I didn't want to shoot it, but there was actually a nice dog snapper. And I could briefly see the tail, and it looked like it swam over to this side. To be clear, this is footage from a different day. This is the next morning. And I line up in here, and I'm going to zoom in. You can barely see the lips of it. I just angled the gun just up enough that I thought it would hit the face, and got a nice shot. So I'd like to stick my hand back behind it, make sure the flopper's deployed if I shoot anything in a hole, and was able to get my hand on it. It was kind of weird. This one had a little growth on it. I'll see the mangroves with these from time to time. I've never seen a dog snapper with it. I've never had any issues eating them. But it did have a funny little growth on the tail there. These are dog snappers. I think they're the grouper of the snapper family. They like to hide in rocks. So I missed a lot of the fish I shot this day. I actually did shoot a few fish, but I wanted to show you guys this. I look in this hole. To the untrained eye, you may not see anything, but if you look at that little brown spot with there's like little dark little half circles, that is actually a slipper lobster. Or a shovel nose. Like I said, everyone calls them something different. I think slipper lobster, bulldozer lobster, or shovel nose lobster are the 3 most common names. I set the camera up. I wanted to grab it and show you guys. A lot of you may have never even seen this or know it exists. I've been here over 10 years, and this is the 4th one that I've ever found. They're just very camouflaged, hard to find. Pretty neat looking creatures. You can see they look quite a bit different than our spiny lobster. They've got the little shovels on the nose. Just really cool looking little things. And I realized it was a female. They are delicious, don't get me wrong. I'd say they're a little better than spiny lobster. They're not like you gotta have it good. So I decided I was gonna let it go. There's not a ton of meat on them, and I don't see them very often. And like I said, they're don't get me wrong, they're delicious, but they aren't. I absolutely have to have it delicious. Some really nice mangroves. These are all mangrove snapper. They can vary in color a bit. Just some really nice ones. I had quite a few missed opportunities. A couple of fish snuck up on me, just didn't have the reaction time, but saw probably like 5 or 6 Cubera. I thought about taking one, and I saw a few that I would have. I just hesitated, and some sheep's head were swimming around. I saw a ton of fish, had a great time. I really hope you guys enjoyed swimming through the mangroves with me. I'd love to get my 5th snapper. I'm allowed 5, but got some weather moving in. I may dive tomorrow morning before we head out to see the family. We're leaving in the afternoon, so I may dive a little bit in the morning. If I do, I'll throw those clips before this clip. But that is all I have. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks for taking the time to come along. Just a lovely afternoon. I had such a great time. Hope you did as well. I will see you on the next one. Later.